Good evening. Namaste, everyone. Delighted to be here. It's a great honor and privilege. I was here, like Akshaya said, I was here last year as a speaker, and that was honor in itself. And now to be here again at the fifth edition of the Global Bhagavad Gita Convention, organized by the Center for Inner Resources Development, North America, is an even greater honor because I find I have been elevated. I am now an interlocutor with Swami Nirviseshananda Tirtha ji, or as Akshaya said, as we lovingly call him, Nutan Swamiji. So this is a great honor. What I've enjoyed most, Swamiji, in the prep to this session, in the lead up to this session, is is having all those conversations with you, per force to figure out whether my questions were okay, whether my line of questioning was fine. So that was fun. And also, what has been wonderful for me is listening to your discourses on YouTube. I hadn't done this before. And for the last 1 week, it's been a totally lovely, immersive experience. And what I've enjoyed most, as Akshaya said, is how lucidly you explain the most difficult things, get to the heart of the matter. So Swamiji is very, not only very wise and profound in what he says, but he's also actually a very compelling storyteller and a fun storyteller. As you all have, even people who have never heard him before, you saw how he opened it with a joke. So he's a very engaging and fun storyteller, and I always feel like regret when I have to pause the video to go away to attend to some errand because it is very compelling. I cannot get up actually. So I've enjoyed that very much, Swamiji. And I know we don't have very much time, and I know my responsibility is actually to let you speak and not keep speaking myself. But before we plunge into the first question, I want to add two bits of trivia about Swamiji, who looks so sweet and full of light and sweetness and calmness from his youth. I just want to add this because it wasn't part of the official intro, but he himself has talked about it, so it's out in the public domain in his Reminiscences. Did you know that our Swamiji actually was part of, or for one night at least, was part of the Bangladesh Liberation War, of which we have celebrated the 50th anniversary just 2 months ago? He actually helped the Mukti Fauj in one of their events. He helped them do something which I won't talk about, and I recommend that you go and listen to his own version of how it happened. It's very exciting. So he helped the Mukti Fauj, which was the Bangladeshi resistance, to fight the West Pakistan forces which were invading. So that is one incident from his youth that you must
One
listen
night,
to.
Rupa, not one night. It was for 1 month. Yeah,
Oh, 1 month.
my
Oh, that
participation,
doesn't come
my,
true.
my participation lasted for 1 month. Initially,
Wow. And
helping them
in
with
one night,
petrol and other things.
over one night, you learned how to use dynamite to blow up
Yeah,
structures.
yes, yes, that's
That was
exactly
over.
what happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other incident from his childhood, not childhood, from his master's days, I think, is that he was involved in getting the head of his department, who was an unreasonable and unkind person, actually suspended for 2 years from his job. And this is our Nutan Swamiji. Okay, so still waters run very, very deep, as you can see. So please watch his Reminiscences. And with that little bit of trivia, I'm plunging into the questions. So, Swamiji, one of the most exciting, fascinating things for me when I was reading up your bio for the first time was that you are a PhD in physics. And coming from South India, and generally in India, in general, in Bengal also, anybody with a PhD is highly respected. So, very scientific temperament, absent minded professor, that kind of, stereotype. And plus, you were teaching at IIT Kharagpur, which elevates you to, you're teaching at an IIT, so that elevates you even higher. What it tells us is that you have a very scientific temperament, right? And yet you actually walked away. Okay, before that, let me ask you, you mentioned in one of your talks that your father actually wanted you to do engineering, but you negotiated with him to pursue a career in physics instead of study in physics instead. What was it about physics that fascinated you so much? You didn't like chemistry, you say in one of your things, but physics fascinated you. What was it?
Actually, right from the beginning, right from as far back my memory goes, I was an enquirer of truth. And in that, I found that physics goes deep into the ultimate goal of physics is to find out the truth. And somehow, although the scientists, all the physicists, they are not spiritual person, but they also have deep inside the mind that the truth is one. This is a very strange phenomena. If we really look at it, whatever Vedanta says, in their heart of hearts, they believe, they have a faith that one day we will be able to land in the truth. So they are, for the last 100 years almost, they have been trying for the unified field theory to bring everything in one. So that was
Yeah.
the attraction for me towards physics. And the same way, to inquire into the spiritual truth. Also, the spiritual truth means the ultimate truth. What is the ultimate truth of this existence? So that was my query. So it all went hand in hand in a complementary manner. I never had any
Mhm.
um, discordant note between the two. As people say, you are a scientist, how did you become a spiritual person? No, it was not like that. I have been what I am throughout, right from birth. Perhaps I have been the same thing, who love who loved physics and also loves spirituality, and for the same reason, because my aim somehow was to find out the ultimate truth of life. So that was it
Mm. So both of
for
them
me.
are looking for the underlying unified truth of everything, is what you're saying.
Hmm.
Yeah, and in the West, particularly, science and spirituality don't make very good bedfellows. I mean, they think that's very uncomfortable together. So they believe that science is about facts and logic, about rigorous analysis, precision, empirical data, and results of experiments that are not only verifiable but repeatable, something very tangible and which you can show, demonstrate. Whereas they see spirituality, which somehow gets mixed up with religiosity, as something based on faith, belief, something that cannot be demonstrated, something that is almost mythical and imaginary, where you have to convince yourself about things where nothing can be demonstrated to you. However, in your own person, as you just said, you have demonstrated quite unequivocally that both can live quite harmoniously together. And by walking away from a career in science, which you did at your prime, you walked away from a career in science to embrace the spiritual life. So it seems to me as if you felt one was somehow bigger than the other, that you had to leave one to pursue the other one full time. So, in your mind, how do you define science and spirituality in terms of how similar they are? You said already, but where is the point of departure? Why did you choose the spiritual life over the science life?
I will tell you, but it may go a little long. I have to make it very
Sure,
brief.
please go ahead.
Anyway, because it is basically the both sides, there are misconceptions, because spirituality, I don't know whether it is linked to spirit in the West, and here also spirituality is related to religiosity and doing puja or going to the temple, which it is not. I will explain what it is. But before that, about science also, when you said the in the West they are not able to match it, but you look into the 20th century Nobel laureates, all who got
Yeah,
in the quantum physics, those who got awarded,
quantum physics.
all of them had come to know, at least theoretically, Vedanta very well, and many of them have made the statement that the ultimate truth is in Vedanta, in about the consciousness, oneness of consciousness. So that is what they understood as spirituality. So it is not really a conflict with the real scientists who had gone deep into it, particularly physicists, and the real meaning of spirituality. As far as spirituality is concerned, see, religion always is based on a faith in a concept of God. Why am I saying concept of God? Because each person has a different concept of God, and in that he has faith. He believes that God is like this or like that. But that is not spirituality. The spirituality starts when we start questioning that concept. inquiring into the concept that I have been thinking like this. Is it so? If God is like this, can we find out? Can we realize what is God or not? This kind of an inquiry, when it comes forward, then only we can call it spirituality. And what happens invariably in that case is that if he starts reading spiritual books, the whole sadhana, the pursuit, undergoes a change, because by God, generally we have a feeling that he is somewhere in the yonder sky, somewhere sitting. He is not within me. That although we may say that God is in my heart, but people, when they are in trouble, they will, in praying, they will think of a God sitting somewhere in the yonder hills or somewhere. So generally people have an extra, extrovert idea about God. Whereas spirituality, the God is right within, not only within. Saying within also is wrong. The I in us, which is the inmost truth of our being, that itself comes out to be the finally discovered as the God. So spiritual sadhana starts when we stop looking outside and start looking within and find out who am I. That is the starting point of spiritual sadhana. So there is the difference. Now, as far as science and spirituality is concerned, in s- where spirituality, I moved from science to spirituality. That was your question. So science, in the beginning, if you understand the basic postulate of physics, basic postulate of natural science, is that we don't go into the subject at all. We think that the world exists as we are seeing, and we go into the reality of the world and the laws which are applicable to the world. We go on thinking about that. That is what we do in science. So we have, right from the beginning, we have kept away the subject part of it. Whereas our rishis, when they started looking within, they found that outside there is nothing. They have seen the world, they have seen everything. If you look for a cause for the ultimate world, it cannot be outside, because whatever you say, even a child will ask that God has created the universe. They will ask, a small child will ask the parents that, then who has created God? It's a very legitimate question, but we do not allow the children to ask that question. A spiritualist will first of all ask that question: is it something to be found out in the objectude, that is, in the objective creation? No, because whatever you can get as the source of the universe, we will ask that what is the what has caused that? So, causal logic, by its very nature, it cannot take us to the absolute truth or the ultimate truth. So they then started looking within, that who am I who is looking at the world? And in that process, they finally discovered that the whole truth is in that I, where the whole universe is appearing in that consciousness. We can call it Atma, we can call it Brahman, we can call it I, or we can call it consciousness. Now, our problem with consciousness is that the moment we say consciousness, we think it is within the body. But I can show logically also, experimentally also, that it is not so. The consciousness, when we discover in that consciousness, the whole universe is appearing in that consciousness. The universe of which my body, mind, personality is a small speck. This sentence is very important. The whole universe of which my body, mind, personality is a product of nature. It is part of the universe. So, what is appearing in the consciousness is the whole universe, which includes my body, mind, personality also. So, can we call that the consciousness is in the body, mind, personality, or the body, mind, personality is in the consciousness? It's just the reverse. So, it, taking into account the subjective part of the existence, our spirituality has solved the ultimate question, the ultimate problem or ultimate quest of man. Not only that, in that they found the solution of life. How? Because the solution is such that he embraces the whole universe. That I is not particular to my body, mind, personality. That I, which is the real I, our real identity, it is universal. That is the real identity. So all the problems of individual life as well as societal life, is coming from our smallness of our identity. That I am in this body, this is what I am, and others are different. And that brings in all the selfishness, greed, competition, and whatnot. All the problems they report, it is all coming from the smallness of our identity. So, when we discovered that I am not small, I am universal, and there is nothing other than that I, the whole universe is just appearing in that I, it solves all the problems of human life. And because the societal problems, the civilizational problems, they are basically originating from individual beings, because society is an assembly of number of human beings. So if we do not have greed, selfishness, etc., such people, then naturally the society also will not have any problem. That is how the saints become universal, because everybody feels that the saint owns him up. Even the animals will feel that they are all, the animals will come to them. It is there in many shlokas also, that they come to him like their own mother, because of his universal dimension. So certainly here spirituality goes beyond science and attains the higher goal. See, by even the greatest discoveries of science, what have we done? It has resulted in good and bad of the world. And bad means extremely extreme situations where the whole world can be destroyed anytime. It is that kind of a fear. Whereas in spiritual discovery, all the problems are solved. It is the ultimate goodness for the whole society, whole civilization, whole mankind. So naturally, I would give spirituality the higher, as you asked, that what make me go from here to there. This is one point. Another, I just by the way, I want to mention that can you imagine that thousands and thousands of years ago, when it is the Rig Veda I am talking about, which is considered to be the oldest of the Vedas, there the Mahavakya is Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam means Prakrishta Jnanam. The ultimate knowledge is Brahman. Now, what is Brahman? Brahman is considered to be the ultimate reality, and which is the substratum of the whole universe. I won't call it source, because the universe is not coming out of any causality. So I will call it, it is the whole universe is appearing in that Brahman. And what is that Brahman? It is knowledge, the real knowledge. Prajnanam Brahma. Now, do you find any other civilization anywhere in the world, even in this century, who has declared that the ultimate truth or the content of the universe or the building block is knowledge? You won't find anywhere. Knowledge means what? It is not matter. The ultimate content of the universe is not matter but knowledge. Of course, I have to remind you that it is not the knowledge we generally think of. This knowledge, the spiritual knowledge, is called Advaya knowledge. That means non dual knowledge. That means normally I am the knower. I am, when I am reading Gita, Gita is the knowledge, and I am reading Gita, I am knowing the whatever is written in Gita. But this knowledge we refer to the ultimate knowledge of our identity. That is non dual knowledge, means when this knowledge fuses into myself. That is, I am knowing that I am the Atma. What is the Atma? What is the Atma? As more and more we go into it, the idea of the concept of the Atma goes on changing. And what is that Atma? Atma is my own identity. So unless there is a transformation taking place in my own identity, we won't call it knowledge. So as our knowledge of the Atma gets more and more mature, my real identity also gets completely transformed. So one day, whatever I have studied about Atma, it becomes I, me. So that at that point, it is not that I am knowing Atma anymore. You become. That is why in our Vedanta always said that whatever, it is a question of becoming, being and becoming. So there, then that is the knowledge. So this Advaya knowledge is that non-dual knowledge is the ultimate truth. This our Rig Veda has declared as Mahavakya, that knowledge is the ultimate, you can say, matter of the universe, which is non-matter. The ultimate matter of the universe is not a matter, but knowledge or consciousness. So
Yeah.
such a great, will not any scientist be attracted to that? So that is what happened to me also.
Right.
Is it enough?
And it's full of such paradoxes. Yeah, yeah. Always these paradoxes in the Vedanta and the Upanishads. This and not this, this but not this. So I guess for it, it's exciting and challenging for somebody of a scientific temperament to want to break it down. But since you mentioned the concept of a god, what is your concept of a god? First of all, is he or she or it? As a scientist, how would you define God? And do you believe in God? That's one question. And as a scientist, how would you define God? And wearing your spiritualist hat, how would you define God?
Both the hats are same for me. The scientist hat and the spiritualist hat are same for me. They are not different. In
Excellent.
both cases,
Yeah.
it is the I, as I just now said, the God, if at
Yeah.
all anything like God is there, it is not anything different from me, that one day I will see God standing in front of me, or one day I will call God and he will come and pet me. Nothing like that.
Mm.
The God is right within what we call it I, as I. Now, what I was telling just before also, it has a link with this. I can tell you a beautiful shloka from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a wonderful shloka which explains this. It says that Vadanti tat tattva vidaha tattvam yad jnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. It says that the tattva vidaha, those who know the truth, they say that tattvam yat jnanamadvayam. The non-dual knowledge is the ultimate truth. That non-dual knowledge about our identity, that itself is called Brahman in Vedanta philosophy, and Paramatma by the spiritualists who are looking for their Atma and Paramatma, and Bhagavan means God by the religionists or the devotees. So,
Right.
see, in devotional scripture like Srimad Bhagavatam, height of knowledge is there and it is all spoken of there. So, it's not a question of any belief, whether you believe in God or not. It becomes a knowledge.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
God is a knowledge.
Yeah.
And it is no more a
Yeah.
belief or a faith or not. Suppose somebody says, I believe in God. Another person says, I don't believe in God. Both are talking about their belief. Actually, truly speaking, who says that I don't believe in God, he believes in his concept of no God.
Yes.
Do you get
Yes.
it? One says that I
Yeah. Yeah.
believe in my concept of God, the other says I believe in the
Yes.
concept of no God. Both are believing in their own
Yeah.
concepts. So in
That's true.
spiritual journey, we have to transcend all our concepts, all our religiosity, all the backlog we have collected through several generations of heredity. Everything has to be thrown off and transcended to get at the truth. Does it satisfy you?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That makes a lot of sense. It's true. Um, and I'll just go back to your coming into the getting diksha. You had told me during one of our conversations that even though you weren't anti-temple or anti-ritual in any way, you didn't feel you were not held by rituals and temples, and often you walked away from temples and sat outside instead of going in because something about that atmosphere didn't appeal to you so much. And the idea of getting diksha or sannyasa, all that was anathema. That was something you thought you would never do in your life. And yet, in your 3 month break between your finishing your masters and taking up your PhD, choosing a subject for your PhD, something happened and you just went and got Diksha from Baba in Calcutta. So, will you let us know? I know this story, but I think it's a wonderful story and I want everyone to hear it as well. What happened? What caused that
Very,
180-degree shift?
very briefly, it's a long story, but generally in Bengali families, people are given to Guru and Diksha very commonly. Everybody, they will have a
I
Guru
see.
and they will have Diksha. Now, naturally, interacting with the general religious people, I never found any attraction towards how towards Diksha means, because seeing the people who have taken Diksha, I did not find any interest in it. So it is a if I had seen somebody else at that time, it would have been different. So with that idea I had grown, and I was looking for knowledge. So naturally the Diksha question did not come for a long time. When I
Mm.
when the what you said is that before, when I joined PhD, for the first 3 months there was enough time, and I went really deep into the various ways of spiritual sadhana. So there came a real doubt that so far whatever I have been knowing or thinking, and thinking about what the practice should be, there I had some confusion. And I remembered that it is always said that whenever you have a doubt, you go to a person who knows, who is a realized person. Go to such a person. Then I remembered of our Swamiji, our Swami Bhumananda Tirtha ji, whom I have listened to in Jamshedpur when I had just passed school final. That is in 1966, school final, higher secondary. In 1966, that was the first year of our Swamiji in Jamshedpur, and I happened to be there, and there I had heard about Baba. So I remembered that story Swamiji had told, that there is somebody close to Calcutta where I can go and see perhaps. So I simply, whatever address Swamiji had told, I remembered, and looking for that, I reached Baba. Now, Baba asked me, why have I come? And that the detail you will find in my book, A Great Association,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that was one of the
yeah.
greatest experience in my life. I felt that I have gone back to the Upanishadic era. When I entered Baba's room, he was
Wow,
sitting
wow.
on his asana. Just for some time, I have written that the time had stopped, and I felt I am in an
Yeah.
hermitage of the ancient Upanishadic era. And he looked very deeply, piercingly into my eyes and said that, who are you? Who has sent you? In Bengali, তুমি কে বাবা? কে তোমায় পাঠালো? আমার কাছে তো কেউ আসে না. Nobody comes to me. Who has sent you? So it started like that, and then finally, I had thought enough, not read so much, but still I had my own theory about truth and all. So when Baba asked me, what do you know, or what something about it, I gave a long lecture as if I know everything like that. So Baba listened to all that, and then he said that, see, you are a student of science, of physics. So when you read Newton's laws from the book, and when you do some experiment in the laboratory proving that law, is there not a difference? Reading from the book and actually doing the experiment and coming to the proving the law. I said, yes, certainly. When we have done the experiment, it is seen and done. The other things I have read might be misunderstood, or many things can happen, or the law itself might be wrong, as we know that it is really not the full truth. So then he said that it is just like that. So far, whatever you have studied, whatever you have thought or learnt, I am not saying anything is wrong. Everything is right. But I will put you in the laboratory of spirituality, spiritual sadhana. And you know yourself by doing the experiment what is the truth. And that putting you in the laboratory is what we call Diksha. So I was
Ah,
immediately ready to take Diksha, that if it is so, that I have to do the experiment to have the right knowledge, and I am ready to do
yeah.
it. So that is how I got Diksha from him. And that
Lovely,
was a
lovely
real
story.
revolutionary change in life.
Yeah, yeah. And that leads me actually to my next question, which is the scientific side of our spiritual, ancient spiritual texts. Because you've often said in your talks that the Upanishads are mistermed. They're called philosophy, when actually they are not philosophy at all. Would you elaborate on that? That they're actually serious
I
science.
always emphasize, some people are surprised also, but I think maybe I am the speaker who has told this for the first time, announced it over the lectures everywhere, that they are the experimental scientists of our country, who did thousands of years ago, who went into their inner realm and did all the experiments, whatever they have come to know through that as an experimental result, they have recorded in the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the record of the experiments done by our rishis in their internal realm. So it is just like in physics, as the experiment is done first and we find out the truth, and then we make some theory to explain the experiment. Like that, in
Hmm. Ah,
spirituality also, as I am trying to explain things in various ways. I have not done in that. I have only done my experiment. When I started speaking, I have making up many things, many stories and models and all to explain what it is. But for me, it was just
yeah,
simple and I mean straightforward truth to discover it.
straightforward.
And it has to be a first hand discovery because it is a truth about my own
That's what.
self. So
That's
you,
the
it
tough
cannot be a
part.
second hand
That's the,
discovery. All other knowledge is
yeah.
secondary. In this case,
That's
it
right.
has to be
That's
a
right.
first hand discovery. That's a great difference with the other knowledges.
Yes, yes,
By
and that's
learning
what
a
makes
car,
it
you
so.
become. Hmm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You were sort of blessed on this journey because you have said that you were a natural born Vairagi. Emotions did not rule you, even when you were a child. And you credit part of it to your parents. You say that they were Vairagis themselves, and you talk about incidents from your childhood where you came back at midnight, sometimes from school after an event, and found that your parents were fast asleep, door was locked, while everybody else's parents were at the school asking, where is my son, where is my daughter? But your parents were fast asleep, and it used to annoy you in the beginning. But now you're grateful for that whole genes, the hereditary treasure of detachment that they gave to you. That's wonderful. But today's, I want to ask you this, Swamiji, on behalf of young people, I think, and on behalf of the parents of young people like myself. I've seen that in the last few years, this particular generation of young people, they are uh, they are not only not detached, they are deeply attached, not only to issues and people that surround them or occur in their orbit, but deeply emotional about injustices that happen anywhere in the world to people they don't know. So there's a deep compassion, like there's a deep river of compassion running in them, but it manifests as a lot of emotion and helplessness. They feel they cannot control what's going on. How do I help? As it's my responsibility as a good human being to help. How can you be so cold? That's what we hear as parents. You are so cold, you are so, not, they don't say detached, they use other words, like you're so disconnected from what is happening in the world. You are so happy just being in your little world of privilege, and you don't engage with the world. So in the Gita, Krishna is saying, be detached, be detached, be detached. And in fact, he tells Arjuna that if the more detached you are, the better you're able to do your work. So I want to ask you, what message do you have for these children, and how can detachment
In
actually
your
help you do your work better?
in your question, there are many questions involved. I don't know whether we have the time, but at least the most essential part I have to reply.
Yeah, please.
First of all,
Yes.
what the story of my parents, it does not fully explain the Vairagya part of it, but a strain of Vairagya I got from them. That is what we say. But they were not sannyasis; they had the proper way. Second thing, the most important thing is that Vairagya, I always translate in English as impersonality and impartiality. Impersonality and impartiality. I never use the word detachment there. Generally, because the word has come from raga means color. Raga means colorless. And you can also say raga means raga dvesha both. That is, raga
Yeah.
means clinging to what you like, and dvesha means hating what you dislike. So vairagya means not to have raga dvesha. The whole Bhagavad Gita is on that only, that not to how to get freed of the raga dvesha. Now, if we don't cling to what we like and we hate what I dislike, then what happens is that we can see things as they are, because our vision is always colored by our likes and dislikes. So vairagya is a quality which gives us clarity, which gives us a clear vision. And
Mm.
with that vairagya, everything will become clear. So you will not
Mm.
have the hindrance of your various colors, that me, mine,
Yeah.
others, selfishness, this, that, and all. They will not interfere with that. So you will be able
Mm.
to do everything much better. Now, the other side of it, that generally we think that people run away from the family because they are detached and they don't stay with the parents and go away because of detachment. It is just the opposite. Actually, a real sannyas is when you cannot stay in the smallness of a family, when the whole world becomes your own family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is really expressed in sannyasa. So
Mm.
when the whole world is you have embraced, you cannot be partial to anybody. You have to go out and you have to see, unless you go out of your family life, nobody will come with their problems or the solutions they want. Many people, your mother may not like or your husband may not like, and they'll be, why are you allowing this person to enter our house? So many things will happen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
actually, the it a sannyasa, a real sannyasin, is a person who has embraced the whole world. Just like as just now I said that the consciousness or the Atma, it is actually the
Yeah.
whole world is appearing on that. How is it possible? It
Yeah.
is for the Vairagya of the Atma. The greatest Vairagyan we know of is our own identity, real identity. The Atma is the greatest Vairagyan because it doesn't get tinted by anything, tainted by anything, doesn't get modified by anything at all. It remains whatever it is. So more and more
Right.
our mind becomes Atma. It is not that we lose our sensitivity. Actually, it is a tremendous sensitivity. In Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, it says that when the sattva guna enhances in our personality, then sarvadvareshu prakasha upajayate jnanam yada. So forget about the gunatita level. That is the last, going beyond all the three gunas. But in even if we pursue the spiritual path so that the sattva guna enhances quite much, you will find that your sensitivity has grown tremendously. You will know what is happening here, there. Seeing a person, you will know what are the thoughts in his mind, what are the uh, sorrows one is having. Everything will be coming to light. So it is wrong to call that such a person will be stony or not compassionate. He will be much more
Hmm.
compassionate, but because he is compassionate to all, he will not be partial.
Yeah.
In other cases, because our compassion is not for all, we are very partial. Is it
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I think we're getting to the end of time. So I want to ask you, how, if do you have any practical tips for how young people and people like us, everybody, can practice this impartiality? And is it good? What do you think? How did this kind of natural bent towards vairagya help you in your work before renunciation? And how young could you start? Any uh, any ways to do this while you're young
Vairagya
so that
has helped in every field of my life, so to say, because it won't color my vision. That helps in everything. Particularly, I would like to say that it may not be so much Vairagya. Even in meditation, our subject in this GBGC is mental harmony. Actually, the
I see.
real mental harmony is when there is no klesha. That means there is no internal clash between, say, our mind and intelligence. There is always clash going on. Emotional and intelligence, there is always what the
Yeah, yeah,
emotion
of
wants to
course.
do, the intelligence does. Always clashes going
Head
on.
and heart.
So the through knowledge and vairagya only the mind can attain that harmony. And this harmony is not only in the mind, then this harmony spreads to the external world also. So what happens is that even in my research work also, I have found that which normally we would not have been able to do, it was done because of my absolute, what shall I say, again vairagya will come. That suppose we were handling some formulas and all, I never thought whether I am going to get PhD or not. I was not bothered about it.
Going to get
Whether I am going to get PhD or not, doctoral
PhD
thesis,
or not? Huh.
whether I am going to have the PhD or not was never in my mind at all. I was only handling the equations and looking for more and more harmony there. And in that process, that just dispassionately working on the to find out some harmony and beauty in mathematics and in nature and all, the solution simply came out. I never knew that the solution is coming in this manner. Same thing I have found, that those who practice a little meditation, forget about the knowledge. Even in the beginning, those who practice meditation to bring their mind into a mental harmony, it helps so much in work. You can do, at least if not in 1 hour, at least in 4 hours, you can do the work you do in 8 hours normally. Many of the things, the multitasking you can do, it is immense. Everything gets done and everything falls into place. Also, suppose you have to meet somebody, you will find that the person has arrived and you are speaking. Normally we would have run to his house. By the time he has come to our house, then we fight with each other that I have come here and you have gone. That so much of time is wasted just like that. Here you think and it has become a real necessity. You find that it is already there, it is done. In many places we don't have to do what we are finally doing and finding that we have done the wrong thing.
Wow,
Automatically
that's
just
a
things
great.
will fall in that place. So that
If
harmony
you work
comes
with
through, not
dispassion,
only through
harmony, huh?
meditation, it comes very much through knowledge, pursuit of knowledge, which cleanses our mind and everything, the whole being. Purity is the thing we always emphasize for everybody. Don't read the scripture for learning the Upanishads or so. We always say that only utilize the Upanishads for becoming pure. That is, it should be the jnana sadhana, should be a sadhana for transforming into a pure being, for bringing in purificatory processes working in us. That we always emphasize everywhere.
So, would you say
If
that
people can
our
do,
biggest sorry, yeah, would you say our biggest responsibility to ourselves and the world is to achieve some harmony within ourselves? That's enough because that harmony will radiate out and
certainly.
embrace the world.
Yes, we have
Certainly,
to
yeah.
bring in the harmony within us. The outside, we don't have to. The world will remain the world, but for us, the world will become harmonious. I will end up
Isn't
with
that
a
selfish?
beautiful shloka.
Yeah.
Huh?
Isn't that a bit
Even
selfish to focus on yourself? Is that like self-centeredness to say, I will
no, no,
focus
but
on
that
being
self is
harmonious?
universal. Na? When you focus on the egoistic small self, all the trouble is there. But when you are
Ah,
focusing on the universal self, no problem is there. Everything will be getting solved.
okay. Thank you, Swamiji. You were going to say some story or something.
I was wanted to. Time is gone, I think. So one shloka in Yoga Vasishta, it says that uh, Upanad gudhapadasya nanucharmastrutaiva bhuhu. The starting with Purne manasi sampurnam jagat sarvam sudhadravaihi. Upanat gudhapadasya nanucharmastrutaiva bhuhu. He says Purne manasi sampurnam jagat sarvam sudhadravaihi. When the mind becomes full, this full, you should listen to my lecture on Brihadaranyaka, the Purna Mada Purna Midam. I myself listened to it and generally we appreciate whatever had come out. So it was a wonderful lecture, I thought, that I happened to listen. I never knew that it has been spoken or I have spoken about it. So that is the real meaning of Purnam. That means when there is no duality, that is the real Purnam. So he said that when the
Yeah.
mind becomes Purna, whole universe becomes Purna for him. It becomes Sudhadravaihi Purnam. It becomes nectarine. Why? Just like when we don't want to get our feet dusty by walking over the earth, what do? Are you going to cover the whole earth with a leather? We put on a leather shoe and go anywhere we go. The dust doesn't
Mm.
touch our feet at all. Upanat gudhapadasya nanu charma stritaiva bhuhu. The whole earth we don't have to cover with the leather at all. So it is like that. We have to only do our part, and whatever comes out, it
Beautiful,
will
beautiful.
take its own way.
That is so lovely. I shall remember this, Swamiji. Thank you so much for a lovely discussion. Again, it was a great honor, very humbling to be part of this. Very grateful. Thank you so much.
For your questions also, it always depends on the questions, and I think we should thank the viewers also, because they play the real part. Otherwise the truth will not come out of our mouth. So everybody has got their role, although they are not seen. It has a role. So we are all happy
Yes.
with that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.